myself. Really excited about this one. I don't know. YouTube is telling me that the connection is really poor, and I hope it's not. So let's see for 2 minutes if this is working. Otherwise, I'm going to. Oh God, it's like looking at myself in the past. Is this working? Anyone here? Anyone can tell me if this is working? Okay. Anyway, right. I seem to be seeing myself quite fine, so let's go with that. Now, what do we want to talk about? Today is a really interesting topic about relationships and things that are going on with us as we are dealing with stuff, as we are dealing with all the things as immigrants we are dealing with. And I want to cover some of the most important topics that I've realized for myself have been really, really, um, how would I say it? They have been really challenging. They have been really difficult, and we are not talking enough about it. And I thought to myself, well, I can talk. I can talk. I can share my own stuff with you. I can be there for you. I can say something that might make people think a moment. And this is something that has been happening actually because I have been posting my content, my reflections, my thoughts and ideas, and I've been receiving incredible response. I have been receiving incredible stories in my DMs, and it's been just so beautiful. Thank you so much for being so honest and so vulnerable, so open. And what am I talking about? I mentioned a few of the challenges that we go through as immigrants. I mentioned a few things that we deal with, from loneliness to loss of identity, loss of relationships, um, various difficulties that we're going through, because this is a journey which is really different from many journeys that we see in the world. There is nothing standard about it. There is nothing, there are no rules around it as well. So we have so much to deal with, and we might not have the necessary tools. And while this whole topic is really complex and it has many layers to it, I realized that one of the most important points and parts of it is our relationships. And I'm not talking about romantic relationships only, I'm also talking about friendships, I'm talking about family, and I also am talking about the relationships with ourselves, with us. And the the most beautiful thing that I discovered is that, well, it's kind of both beautiful and sad, is that we technically know that relationships are important and we technically do have relationships, but because it is so natural to be in relation to something or someone, we consider this as a natural skill. And I do agree with the fact that it is a natural skill, it is in our blood, it is in our nature and biology, but also I agree with the contrary opinion, which is we need to work on the relationships. We need to learn how to build relationships. And again, I'm talking about friendships, family relationships, and also, of course, romantic relationships. We need to to build skills. We need to learn how to do this properly. And our communication is getting more and more complex. We have a lot going on. We are working on a lot of things, and our identities are more complex because we have many more things that contribute to our status in the world, and we also have more complex and more layered relationships as well. So what is happening right now? Apart from social media that everyone is talking about, right? The bad parts of the social media and things that are going on in the world. But also our demanding jobs and the situation in the world and everything else that is going on, from trauma to war and challenges and the looming recession, everything. Uh, it is way easier for us to lose the sense of self, to lose the sense of order, lose the sense of just understanding of what the hell is going on at all. And when we are talking about it in the context of being a new person in a new environment, in a new country, in a new city, many more pieces are moving as well. So while let's say how it happens to me, I am a citizen of Ukraine and many things are going on in Ukraine right now, but also my family is in Russia. This adds another layer to the complexity. Um, I have friends from all over the globe and they are also dealing with their own country's stuff, such as Iran and Middle East, but also America and Latin America, the rest of Europe as well. Every country at this point has something going on. So not only you're absorbed in your own cultural situation, you're also participating in the situation, like global situation as well. Not only through the news and the media that you are following, but also through other people's stories. So what I want to share today is that apart from all this very complicated setting for our relationships, we still have to build them. We still have to work on our lives. We still want to do something important in this world, and we have really beautiful missions, most of us. So, and our well-being primarily depends on the quality of our relationship. This is not my quote, this is the quote of one of the people that I follow and respect and admire, which is Esther Perel. And I will quote her again at least once today because she is indeed focusing on building relationships and going deeply into the nature of the relationships and nature of the complexity and ambiguity of our relationships and our lives. So, talking about building a friendship, a relationship, a partnership, talking about maintaining and nurturing the relationships from the past with our families, with our friends, with people that we left. Um, not sure if behind is the right word, but people that we physically left, right? We are not there, present anymore. And this is what contributes to what we need to deal with. Now, what a relationship is, a healthy relationship. Before I want to go into the details of how to maintain and build and nurture the existing relationships we have in the context of our immigration and in the context of our being far away, what some call an ambiguous loss, right? People are there in theory, they're there in the world, but they're not next to you. So this is an ambiguous loss of the friendship, of the relationship. What is a relationship in general, right? What are we talking about when we're talking about this? Um, we are talking about like a healthy relationship, I hope, right? And a healthy relationship consists of several parts. It is always mutual, it is always reciprocal, it is always with appropriate effort. We need to build, to create relationships that respect this kind of rules. And for me, these are the things that I discovered for me that can, like, that the healthy relationship consists of, which is open communication, vulnerability, freedom, and commitment. So this complex kind of this symbiotic relationship of freedom and commitment, common experience, so sharing common experiences, helping each other grow, and providing support. Now, these components need to be present in all of the relationships for me, and they cannot be oftentimes present at the same time in the same kind of quantities compared to each other, and also between the people, right? because sometimes I'm going through challenges and I need more of support, and you will help me grow. Sometimes I need to be more vulnerable, so I can make this next step towards a deeper relationship that we have. I need you to provide me with more freedom, or I need to offer you more commitment. I need to show up. I need to be present with you. So while these components are crucial, the level and also the I don't know if you want to like put it in physical terms, the time we spend together, the quality of the time we spend together, the actual content of our relationship, it will change and fluid. But I will really insist on you focusing on building, maintaining, creating, and nurturing healthy relationships, because many of them, and we also want to go deeper into like older relationships and things that we have created so far based on where we are at and what kind of mental health we're also in. It really influences the quality of the relationship. So the first point I want to make is that we need to understand what a healthy relationship looks like, because this is what we want in our lives. We don't want to have an unhealthy relationship, a relationship that is not contributing to any person's growth. And while it's more common for people to be like really aware of a bad relationship, right? It is also not oftentimes healthy to stay in a relationship which on the surface is kind of working out, but there is a certain feeling which is really not kind of, can't describe it or explain it with proper words, but something is off. But because on the surface we are okay, we're like not fighting, or they help me, I help them, I feel welcome, something is off, and we don't recognize that. I have to say one thing. I am not a therapist, and I work with people on more of a, let's say, not a very, very deep layer of it. I am not going into trauma. I'm not going into certain um, mental health difficulties and issues and challenges that people might have. But I do recommend therapy to everyone. And I want to be very honest about that. I'm at my third round of therapy, and I couldn't be happier with that. I'm really, really happy with the results I'm getting. And I think at this point, I'm really getting to be a more present and grounded and healthy person and a healthy relationship builder, right? Part of a relationship. While we are talking about this, you might start already thinking that there is something that you want to work on some specific relationships in your lives. Once again, I want to repeat the components of healthy relationships that I realized for me, right? These are the things that work for me. Open communication, vulnerability, freedom and commitment, common experiences, growth and support. All right, so let's go kind of into what is actually going on with any person that has moved abroad, even for, let's say, 3 to 6 months. Or you completely change your life, you moved from like one continent to another, and you live abroad, and you start noticing certain things, right, in your life. Certain changes which are kind of difficult to comprehend. So first of all, let's talk about old relationships. So those are the family relationships, your friendships. Maybe if you're in a long distance relationship with your partner, this also is a relationship that you bring with you to this new experience. What we inevitably start to notice is that the relationships start morphing and changing with the distance. Our communication is not as often. Our communication doesn't have the same quality. We lose that physical part, which is objectively is extremely important for us because we are biological beings. We exist in the physical world, and a lot of information that we receive And communication and quality of the relationship is coming from the physical presence. There is no way around it. This is how it is. So the kilometers between us, in a way, become a magnifying glass of either the good stuff or the bad stuff. So they outline the goodness or the problems that we have in the relationship, and it's some, like, in many cases it's like the same thing. You see much more acutely that something is not working, and you see also much more acutely that there is something really, really important in this relationship, because you miss the people, you need them, you want to meet them, you want to see them. Now, why does this happen? First of all, why do we see a bit of a kind of mismatch between what we think a relationship is, and as it evolves into this more like a new way of it being in your life at this moment, right? Like how it's morphing. Many of our old relationships, and we are talking primarily about friendships and family relationships at this point, they are situational, and they're based on the physical spatial experience. For example, your family is literally the people that you grew up with and you haven't chosen them, and they're just around you, right? Like all the people that are part of your family, you are supposed to love and care for them, even if you can't really get along because you share the same last name. Or these are the people that have been around you forever, and your relationship is basically formed based on that spatial, temporal, situational layer. Now, when we're talking about friendships, it is the school, it is the university, same, geographical area, the same block, maybe also your hobbies and, classes and places that you have attended as a child, as a young adult, as an adult as well. So what is going on is that you build the relationships around where you're at, right? Physically, and let's say with certain situations, like let's say your hobbies, right? You go into a theater class or swimming class. So you build the relationships based on where you're at, and some of them will be really healthy and they will have a lot of quality into them. You share a lot of good stuff. You've had amazing experiences together, but some of them are really, in a way, artificial. Just because you're put in the same fishbowl, right? In school, for example. And this is where you see already, as you probably from teenager became a young adult or an adult, you already understood that this is how it works. Our school buddies are not going to be with us forever. And we were there in that situation together, but we are not anymore. And there is nothing else that connects us. The same is going to happen with some of the old relationships that you have, that you're carrying on. And once again, this is a magnifying glass, this distance between you, for the friendship and relationship you have. And this is why it might be that they change so drastically. You might be following up, like you might be willing to reconnect as someone who left, right? Like someone who is dealing with new experiences. While there is so much excitement going on with this new activities, it might also be very often scary and challenging, and forcing the anxiety and fear. And we inevitably want to reconnect with what is going on. What is going on in the past, what we're familiar with. We feel FOMO, we feel we're missing out on lots of things. One definitely common experience I have gone through was, while I'm building my new life in a new place, I am of course missing out on a lot of things that are going on like back home, right? And also there is a certain aspect of jealousy and frustration that's going on when you are, for example, going through challenges and everything else it seems to be good back home, and you're going through challenges and you're alone. No one can really relate to what what you're going through in your family. And for me, I didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't have a lot of support on the spot. Yes, I would receive messages and calls, and people were kind of there for me. They were really there. But it was really as if kind of watching a movie of it or something like that. While I did have this emotional support, maybe not even often times as much as I thought I needed or I could receive, I really couldn't see the connection. I couldn't get the connection with the people anymore. Well, my friends were buying, houses and apartments and getting jobs and like having parties and celebrating birthdays and all the different, special situations, special, occasions with each other. I was there alone and I was not feeling well in many, many cases. And we can argue, yes, this is our own choice and this is what we wanted, but still, we cannot remove this challenging experience from us being abroad, living abroad, building a whole life. It's actually really, really, really difficult. And we need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that we are going through a lot. We need to acknowledge that we are alone, that we need support. And maybe our old relationships and people that we have in our circle from before are not the right people to really comprehend what we're going through just because they can't. And it's not bad or good, it's just how it is. So while we are there to share, if we want, as much as we want about our relationships, um, or the situation with the people that we have around us, we really need to understand that they might not be the right people for us to really receive that unconditional support anymore. And this is where it creates a kind of a paradox, which I also mentioned before, which is we can't really relate to the past as much because we're building something new. And this something new and the people we meet, they are not yet in a deep relationship with us, friendship or anything else, to give us that unconditional support that, let's say, a family or childhood friend would give. This is where we objectively are really left to ourselves, and we need to understand how to deal with the situation. I wish I knew a bit more about dealing with loneliness. When I moved abroad 8 years ago, I was 21. I definitely had a lot to learn about life still, and still have to. And I can say that, being able to self-soothe and be there for myself is a skill that I have been learning all of my life, and I'm learning right now, and it is really difficult. So if I had to give a piece of advice to someone who is now going through similar things or still is in this phase where there is a lot of past and there is a lot of present and try to really make it work, go inside and try to understand what you're going through. Be very honest with yourself and share what you're comfortable with the people around you. One thing that is important to mention is that when we are going through this new experience, we just, let's say, moved abroad or we changed places or something happened and we feel there is a lot of new experience. Still, people back home from where we are, they would be curious about what you're going through. They would be really interested in your life and they want to talk to you. There's the only kind of small or big barrier, depending on the situation, of you really having different experiences in life right now. And it happened to me the opposite way, which I'm sure also happened to many of us, is that the person we care for is living somewhere else, like they moved to another place, and they are overwhelmed with their own experiences, and they have to deal with a lot of stuff, and therefore they are not necessarily in the headspace to work on our relationship. They are not necessarily even thinking that they can't even imagine just how much time maybe passed between our interactions because they are busy with their own stuff, which of course we can try to understand as much as we can, because indeed this is like the opposite side of our story. We also need the time. We also can't really adapt to a new situation just as much. And while we realize, oh God, I haven't spoken to you in a week or 2 weeks or a month, and this is crazy because for me it has been like, it's just like super fast, and I haven't noticed that, but you notice it, and I know that I maybe, um, letting you down as a friend, and I'm hoping for understanding. So the old relationships are becoming really complex in this sense. There is a lot of give and take. There is a lot of commitment that needs to be that is tested in a way. Are you going to follow up with me? Are you going to be patient with me? Can I trust that you are there for me? Can I trust that you will try to understand me? Can I be the right, person for you, a friend, a partner? Can I be there to follow up and commit and be present and just contribute to the growth of this relationship? It is really, really natural for them to kind of freeze for a second, to morph a bit or a lot, and to, if you can manage to work it out, it will work out. It happens to me. There are still a lot of friendships that I don't speak to these people in some time, but I know they're there. So that's in terms of old relationships. Now, new relationships. We have basically we meet people, they're locals, and they maybe help us integrate in the culture. We meet people that are like us, maybe other foreigners, who are trying to integrate, or maybe they're a couple of steps forward, and they know a bit of things, and they know what we're going through, and they can be there for us. No matter what the nature of these relationships, what is going on right now, is still we're lacking the foundation. We're lacking the foundation of this support and vulnerability and commitment. Objectively, we need some time. Now, it is possible to kind of speed the process up, but once again, I want to approach building a relationship from a very natural and present point of view. And even there is some kind of formula, it doesn't really work 100% of the time. I can share what I have been working on and what I have been doing while building new relationships and friendships. But also, I cannot guarantee this is something that will work, because there are a lot of personality parts that make, the whole mix, both personalities, I mean, the person that you want to build a relationship with and yourself. And there are also other things that contribute to this very shaky and very unstable situation with us building something with new people. So when we're talking about, let's say, other foreigners, or even people that are as like us, really, international and outgoing and moving around or traveling a lot even, there will be this thing like, I'm trying to build something with you, but you keep moving. You keep moving to other places, to other countries, and I have this whole, we have this whole relationship now, we have this friendship, amazing friendship, and then you're leaving, you're going abroad, and it will happen again, that it will change, it will morph. And of course, the less foundation there is, the easier it is to lose that kind of relationship, just because it's not as deep, it's not as rooted. So that's really important to see. And also, compared to the old relationships, these new relationships are more adult. In theory, again, we're talking about kind of healthy relationships, mature relationships. They're more adult, right? They have more of who we are right now in them, and not who we were when we were a child. But they also are more conditional. They really require an effort. They really require building something new, like building a new history instead of relying on the old history. And this is where many people will really not know how to work with that, like how to build this history, new history together, how to create something worthwhile. Once again, I will repeat, we are wired to be in relation with people. We are wired to create connections. We are wired to have communication. We are very, very social. This is our nature, just as it is in our nature to eat and have sex. But we can all agree that not everyone knows how to eat properly or even have sex properly. So that's why also having connections, building connections, while it is something natural, it doesn't come naturally to us, especially with the complexity of our lives right now. So this is where I would really, really focus and try to transmit what I've learned about learning how to build relationships. So once again, we're talking about healthy relationships. We're talking about mutual effort. We're talking about creating something together. Um, in terms of both old and new relationships, I would definitely focus on what a healthy thing looks like. What is a healthy thing? What is really, really supportive and caring and loving? And if we see it that way, and if we feel that there is something that is not working, there is a big question to ask. Is that relationship actually healthy? And the distance, let's say we have, if we're talking about old relationship, is actually giving us the space, temporal space, physical space to reassess and evaluate the relationships. And as painful as it can be, it will not be bad at all to remove those relationships that don't work anymore. And if you have a deep enough connection, you can work through it, but you can also just let it dissipate if it's not something you can handle. If it's something that, there is so much trauma deep into that, and you realize that they have not been really supportive to you, or you cannot provide something they really, really need. So there is no kind of right. I mean, there is. I would say an ideal scenario is that you learn how to communicate your feelings and needs openly. But I also understand that there might be just so much deep stuff that you can't process it just like that. And in this case, I would definitely recommend to evaluate therapy, to work with coaches or mentors, to focus on things that you can improve, at least for yourself, to have more peace in your life. Now, when we're talking about any relationship at this point, right? Old, new, and even relationship with yourself. A very critical point is probably not the only critical point of health, which is you need to communicate properly, right? Communicate properly in a healthy way, supportive, loving, caring way towards the person and yourself. And strangely enough, this skill of effective, open, clear communication is not what we have. We grow up mimicking other people's patterns and histories and mindsets, and we can all agree not all of them are healthy. So what happens is that we come with our baggage of really interesting tools which are partially broken, partially not even functional, and partially kind of dangerous. Some of them are good and healthy, and the thing is that we can't really distinguish. This is what I noticed, like the majority of us are like that. At least something will not be working, and you will be trying to plug it in and try to make it work, and it's just like not there. I know that it can be quite difficult to really assess many of these components, especially when a lot of trauma is involved. And I can say that many of us would be people pleasers and gentle souls. Many of us will be living for other people and operating for other people and talking, building, connections to benefit other people, so that we are not left alone and we are not lonely and scared and ostracized and dead, because that's just how our brain is thinking about all of that. So there will be a lot of these honest communication, not because you want to lie or you want to deceive or be the bad guy, but also because you just not you don't know how to do it otherwise. It's way too scary to be honest. We were shushed and we were criticized, we were punished for being ourselves, for being expressing our emotions. Good ones, maybe. Okay, just don't make it too loud. Don't scream. Don't like don't disturb the peace. But also negative emotions. No, no negative emotions. These are bad. So this all teaches us our emotions are bad, uncomfortable. We better not express them. We better put them like inside, and we keep putting them inside. We keep like storing them on top of each other. They keep like regurgitating with them like it's in a very unhealthy manner. So that's not good. And one thing that I can recommend start doing to really test how it is for you to be honest is to communicate the most important things you're going through openly. To say, I'm not here to play games. To mention, I want to make it work and I will need to be honest. And also to share every time how you're feeling. Now, the thing is that this can seem really scary. This can seem really inappropriate or too straightforward or self-serving or challenging because you're kind of an uncomfortable person. You become someone who you were taught not to be, which is going to freak you out. And well, once again, a lot of inner work is going to help with that because it's a lot about accepting who you are and the nature of you, which is again feeling the emotion, processing the emotion, not always believing the emotion or operating from it because that might not be healthy. Your emotion is there to indicate a certain state and not necessarily dictate your action. This honesty, this honesty, not dishonesty. Honesty can be quite dangerous in our head, at least. But I promise you that as long as you're respectful and caring, and I mean caring in kind of Jesus way, not caring for you or for the other person, feelings as we think, because oftentimes our understanding of what is good is not really objective. But let's say if you're thinking from a point of view, this is going to benefit the well-being of both of us, even if it's uncomfortable right now, try to approach it this way. So in my relationships right now, having gone through a lot of inner work and going through it as we speak every day, I can say that I am able to openly give feedback and say, I don't want to play games. This is not me. This is not us. We can talk about it. We can process it. This is how I feel. I do know that it might not be the most healthy reaction right now, but this is how it is. And if it is too much for you, leave me alone. Let me process it. Let me come back to you. I know it might be kind of mind-blowing for many people that you can actually have a conversation about the fight and not the fight itself, which is mind-blowing for me as well. And I also do agree that sometimes you need to let this thing go off. You really need to share some, stuff, like to explode in a moment. As long as you do it in a healthy way. I really am giving a lot of kind of notes about it being caring, supportive, and healthy. And I really want it to be, let's say, a takeaway from what I'm even talking about here. Focusing on what is healthy for you, focusing on how to make it healthy, and focusing on being healthy, which is again a work in progress. Another thing that you can and should be open about is what you're going through and the challenges that you have. And if you need help, ask for it, and also be vulnerable. So this is in a way a simple shortcut, which I know is not easy. Vulnerability. Vulnerability for me has been this kind of, back door, really intimate way to connect with someone. And at this point, I am where it doesn't feel scary or dangerous anymore, because first of all, I have enough foundation, my own inner strength to deal with whatever comes if someone wants to use that vulnerability against me. But also because I'm quite strategic about this vulnerability, meaning that I'm not faking it. What I'm saying is that I am not vulnerable with things and with people that can be dangerous. So I will not share something you know really intimate about me with a stranger that might use it somehow. I'm not going to share some important information with people that might have, the I don't know, some kind of history about it, or I'm not going to share something that compromises other people. So my vulnerability is really very personal, and it's also very thought of. So I am going to think about who I'm vulnerable with and about what. And when I decide to do that, I go full in. I go full in terms of how I feel about them, what I need, what I want, and I will not lie. Like, I don't want to lie saying this is easy still, but it doesn't feel dangerous. It's not easy because in many cases I feel like I'm self-serving, and I feel like I'm um, demanding something that the other person cannot give, or I am just being too much, whatever, emotion, needs, just as a person. Maybe my sense of humor is not as good as I think, or maybe I'm just being bitchy right now, which I think this kind of bitchy thing is really what I have in my head all the time. I might say something which seems like fun and cool in the moment, or it's just like kind of an impulse to say something, and then I will be regretting it. I will be thinking and thinking and thinking about it. And the thing is that I started being vulnerable about being vulnerable as well. So I started saying, hey, I just said something and I thought I wanted to say it and I thought this was fun, but then I rethought it and I'm not sure whether it was, really nice or not nice. And how do you feel about it? Was it too much? Was it too bossy? Was it too, upsetting? Was it just, not very respectful? And quite rarely people told me that it was bad. Oftentimes I heard that no, actually it's not too much. I enjoyed it. It was funny. I like when you do it. I like when you're this honest. I like when you're saying again this honest, like when you're honest. I like when you're saying things like that. And again, and it's also not my experience. Many people in my life had confirmed that as well. Um, Another point I want to make is that on this note, people pleasing and being a gentle person, I am still getting rolled over by people who might read well my insecurities and people who have something they want to get. And what I noticed is, I of course don't notice it at the moment. I I feel like they have certain status or certain weight in my life and I follow them. But then what tells me that it's not really good or healthy or supportive is that I don't feel good about that. And I cannot explain why. So when someone is telling me to do something and they basically, they tell me to do it and then they leave, so I have to deal with that stuff. Um, I do it and then I feel like that was not really respectful towards me and I can't understand why. I cannot explain why. I just have this feeling. And this could be a nudge for you to start reassessing, is it actually good? Maybe someone is trying to manipulate you. Maybe someone is trying to get whatever they want through you because you are a giver. So pay attention to that. If you feel something is off, even if you cannot explain it, go over the situation again in your head, share it with a friend that you trust, talk again to your therapist or coach or mentor, because just an external perspective is really necessary at this point. I I started realizing that people were using me when other people mentioned that people were using me. I would just feel, well, yeah, compromise is probably a necessary thing, and I need to allow certain things again in my life, but it's not really the case. If you don't feel good about something, it is worth exploring. It's worth understanding, like, what is going on. And um, I also want to mention back the emotions and feelings. I wrote I wrote a book about it, not about this specific thing, but about all this inner work. And maybe you know it, maybe you read it already. And I will mention it before if you want to check it out. There is quite a lot of, let's say, free materials that you can access, like me reading the whole first chapter, or some of the parts of the text visible on the website. And I also created 2 videos based on some recent research on emotions and emotional intelligence and what it is, what it is not, and how to navigate the complex emotions, like sneak peek or maybe like a little teaser. Our emotions, while we feel something physically in our bodies, most of our emotions are conditional and social, meaning that most of our emotions are created by our brain, which is fascinating and beautiful, and definitely something that you want to explore, because once again, this is contributing to your overall understanding of how to build and nurture the relationships. Now, there is another thing I want to mention, because from my perspective, and something I also worked with a couple of people on, was, again, if we want to have a healthy conversation with a person, but we really cannot, like, we don't vibe with them, we don't match with them, our interests are not really there, but I'm there to talk to them for the entire evening just because I cannot say no. There is one thing that I discovered from years ago, which really helps, which I called selfish interest, meaning that if you're forced, let's say, I don't know, you want to have a good time and you're at this networking event and there is someone next to you who is kind of a nice person, but you like realize they like football, you have nothing to contribute about football. They, they have a certain history, certain profile, and you're not that kind of person. They have, they work 9 to 5, and you're a business owner. While you can connect on certain things, it seems like there is just no match between you two. There is no match in terms of conversation, in terms of values. But if you really want to do that, there is a trick to that in a way. My strong belief is that every person has something to teach us. Every person has developed certain skills and knowledge that is valuable and interesting. And even if you're not going to explore it later on for your whole life, you can still learn something at the given moment. So while you might not be very particularly interested in football, you can still try to understand the passion behind that. So all my family, for example, my parents, my brother, my grandma, my aunt's family, they're all extremely passionate about sports, and half of them even worked in the sports industry. I am very far from it. The only thing I did about sports was swimming classes and dancing, which at this point is considered to be like athlete work, but again, it's like sport. I don't watch things. I don't watch Olympics. I don't watch World Cups and stuff like that. Just not my jam. And while I recognize that my family is really, really connecting around it and about it, I'm kind of missing out. And while I cannot, I don't even want to force myself to be part of that conversation, I can still learn a bit more, from human curiosity, of my own kind of anthropological curiosity, what's going on. So I did a bit of this kind of interviewing, trying to understand what is driving you, with following this kind of sport, and what are you following, and what are you interested in, what is this giving you? And I received really interesting replies as well from them, because they just talked about their emotions, their feelings, and their challenges, and some really cool, interesting things that they shared with me. So I connected with them, even if not, let's say, directly around football, but laterally in a way, from a different perspective. So if you have this kind of situation when you're faced with a person that you can't really comprehend, there is still a way for you to let's say connect with them, because it's not selfish. You're really trying to connect from your point of view, contributing from your point of view, and you're interested about the topic that that person is, well, at least somehow an expert in. So you can really build something together. Now, to recap everything we just talked about, today's relationships in general, friendships, relationships, family, they're all challenging. They're challenging because we live in a world that is crazy, and many parts of our identities right now are tied to external things: our nationality, our work, our business, who we are in terms of demographics, where we are, and what we are thinking, what we believe in, and so on and so forth. Well, some of them we can control, right? Like where we work or how we lead our lives. Some of them we can't control, like let's say our nationality and things that are going on in the country. As I mentioned already, as a Ukrainian, I can definitely confirm that this kind of change of my cultural identity happened without my active participation in the past several years. From Ukraine what to Ukraine oh my god, and there is just like, I cannot really even contribute to any part of that narrative in people's heads. What is a healthy relationship? We also talked about. A healthy relationship has several components. According to me, they are open communication, vulnerability, courage, freedom, commitment, sharing experiences, building, creating experiences together, supporting each other's growth, and supporting just each other through thick and thin. Now, we also talked about old relationships and why they change and morph with the distance, what they can be related, like what this change is related to in many cases, and what we can still work on when this happens. Now, new relationships as well, lack of foundation, lack of vulnerability. How can we make sure we are present, and how do we make sure that we build something good, even if we move, they move, everything is kind of moving all the time, and the world we live in is not contributing to any stability. While building both new and nurturing old relationships, we wanted to focus on what is a healthy relationship once again, because many situations are a magnifying glass to what is going on, and this might be a great opportunity. It is in many cases, and for many people, to reassess the way you have been building those partnerships, friendships, family relationships, both old and new. And if you have any challenges, any struggles, what I would suggest strongly, once again, I will be saying it as often as I need to, evaluate therapy, evaluate working with someone, with an expert who can show you how to process complex and deep emotions, things that you're going through, the trauma. Trauma is so present in today's lives of everyone, and especially of us immigrants, because there are reasons why we leave the country. It is not an ordinary decision to move, to restart the life, and there is a lot of what is going on there. All right? And if therapy might be too deep, or maybe you're already doing that, there are also other professionals that are working with similar topics, maybe not going as deep. But if you, let's say, want to focus on your communication skills or relationship building skills, there are coaches, there are mentors, and they might help you. There are a lot of resources, self-help guides, things that you can, read and watch and listen to and try to understand what is going on. Me personally, I am doing it every day. I'm working on myself. I, as I mentioned, work with a therapist. I I work on myself. I do many things. So you can always ask me what I could recommend. Or another thing is that I will say objectively, I am also working in this field. I'm working to support immigrants on their journey. With at this point, I think I'm going to focus indeed on the relationships and also more business aspects, but still in the field of communications. So my background is marketing and business building, but I'm also genuinely, passionately, and professionally interested in the whole science of communication. So from relationships to public speaking to marketing to partnership buildings in the more kind of corporate business environment. Now, other things really critical, again, coming back to what a healthy relationship is, you need to be able to communicate your feelings properly. You need to know how to express your needs, your boundaries, your desires. You need to be able to be the right partner or friend as well. You need to work on yourself, go deep, work with professionals, understand what you're going through, because it is our responsibility to take care of ourselves. And yeah, we are objectively in many cases alone abroad, and there is no one else who can support us. And while it can be extremely exhausting to be there for ourselves 24/7, this is something that we have to do. And I know it might not be very happy or comfortable at times, but this is how it is. And I can tell you guys, sometimes I wake up and it's like, not this again. There is a lot of stuff I need to deal with, and it seems like living never stops until it does, and then so much to deal with. And once again, I'm mentioning my book, and I'm mentioning these 2 videos that I already recorded, and I'm going to share it in the comments, which are focusing on emotional intelligence and how our emotions are conditional, some of them. So the expression of our emotions is often very conditional and very social. I also mentioned a couple of my own personal kind of tricks and things that really help me as a people pleaser fix some of the communication and relationships challenges in my life, which is focus on the deep end of this communication. So for example, if you feel that something's not working, something's really off, and you can't even explain why, something's there, something not really healthy is there. And it could be that people are manipulating you because you're a gentle soul. It could be that you're gaslighting yourself because you're denying your own feelings and needs and boundaries. It could be that something is not working in that relationship, something else, and both of you are dragging it out. And if you let each other go, it could be way better. And another little interesting trick was showing so-called selfish interest, which is you come to a person that you can't really connect with, maybe, but you want to, or you're kind of you're in a condition to do that. Maybe it is a family member, and see what kind of perspective you can express your interest from, your genuine interest from, that they can answer. So I was giving an example of me connecting with my family who are really passionate about sports, and I am not. And I was curious to know not about the sport, but their passion. Yeah, so if you approach everything from the point of view of what can you teach me and what I can teach you, I think it will help many people. Now, this is it. I would suggest this is it, and I think we can close here. If you enjoyed this, please let me know. Send me a message, leave a comment on the videos. I would be really happy to learn more about what you're going through, and if there is a way I can support you. I do see that there is a lot of conversation around it that needs to be had. I really want to help if I can. I want to support you. If there is something that you see I can contribute with in terms of knowledge or experience, do let me know. And I love having these conversations with you guys, so please keep them coming. I wish you a great day. I wish you a wonderful end of the week, and we will connect in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.